Danny was right. 4 sermons in a series with a theme of trusting God. Last sermon, not so much a summary as a pause. We've been talking about, more specifically, the particular difficulties we have trusting God as we are beginning our life in Jesus. Now, what you'll find is, as you progress through your life in Jesus, you still have trouble trusting Jesus. You still have trouble trusting God. It's just that the issues are different. The questions become more profound and existential, more, I'm even going to say, heart and core threatening. Because we've got our own structure of sin built up and we hold tightly to us, and God just kind of peels us away from it little by little over time. And one of the things I love about the writers of Scripture is that they were just utterly realistic about the entire process of faith from start to end, from conversion to death. One of the places that God pulls all of that together in a single sequence of passages to kind of say, hello there, pay attention here, are in what are called the Psalms of Ascent. These are Psalms 120 through 134, 14 Psalms that serve 2 purposes, actually 3 purposes. After the exile, after the captured Jews came back from Babylon, so this is, 500 BC, 450 BC. The psalmists pulled together these 14 songs. And with these 14 songs, they wanted to accomplish 3 goals. First, the restoration temple had 14 steps. And so while you were, and the steps worked concentrically. So this would be the first step, and then this would be the second step, and then this would be the third step, and then 4th step, all the way up to the altar. And so at Passover, other major feasts, Israelites would be carrying their beast of sacrifice, a lamb if you could afford it, and they'd stand on the first step and they'd sing the first psalm. Past the time, we didn't have cell phones. They'd stand on the second step and they'd sing the song and hope for Pokemon Go. They'd be praying. Past third step, and of course, as you got closer and closer, the steps got smaller and smaller, and so you'd have to squeeze your way up. And so you needed something to pass that time. So they collected these 14 songs for people to sing. But they also served to describe the journey from where you live to Jerusalem. They describe geographically your passage through the countryside. So you get up and you say, okay, here I am in Beth Shemesh. I got to go to Jerusalem. Why do I have to go to Jerusalem? Well, according to Psalm 120, I live among a people of unclean lips. And so the third function they served was to describe our experience of converting and growing, and our experience of converting and growing in Jesus. So they would start looking around at each other in Psalm 120. Here we are, we're going on pilgrimage. Let's all sing this first song together. What does that first song say? You lie. Oh, and by the way, I lie too. We all lie together about how good we are and about how well we're doing and about how close we are to Jesus. We all lie about the state of our hearts. When someone speaks peace, we really are for war. And then Psalm 121. So we gather together and we shoulder our packs and we look around and we say, okay, this journey is dangerous. Where do I get my help? How about that hill? The sun god is worshipped on that hill. I could go get a scarab to protect me from sunstroke. Or that hill over there, that's the moon goddess's shrine. I could get probably not a scarab, probably a little ankh symbol or something to protect me from going crazy. I say, well, no, it'd be stupid of me. I'm setting out on a pilgrimage to worship Yahweh. So I should ask help from some other god? And no, I think my help is not going to come from the hills. It's going to come from the maker of heaven and earth, which includes the hills, by the way. Okay. Then we do, all right, Psalm 122. Here we're learning to worship together. We're saying we're headed up to the house of the Lord. I'm rejoicing with those who say to me, all my other Beth Shemesh fellow citizens, at least the ones who are going. Not everyone is going. It's spring. It's planting time. If everybody in the village takes 3 weeks out to go walk into Jerusalem, we're all going to starve in the fall. So at least those who are going, we're rejoicing that they're going with me. And then once we've got all of that settled, once we've converted, oh, I guess I really do lie. Well, I guess I can begin the process of worshiping my covenant God alone. And I guess I can begin the process of settling in with other people who are Yahweh worshipers. What's my first change? What's my first dynamic, first talent I need to develop? And so the psalmist says in Psalm 123, I lift up my eyes to you whose throne is in heaven. As the eyes of slaves look to the hand of their master, as the eyes of a maid look to the hand of her mistress, so our eyes look to the Lord our God till he shows us his mercy. Have mercy on us, O Lord, have mercy on us, for we have endured much contempt. We have endured much ridicule from the proud, much contempt for the arrogant. Now, the governing image in this psalm, I lift my eyes to you, as the hands of a slave look to the hand of the master, as the hands of a maid, as the eyes of a maid look to the hand of her mistress. Governing image here is probably that of some Egyptian slaves serving at banquet for an Egyptian husband and wife and their guests. And under these circumstances, slaves would be standing in a niche in the wall, dead still, waiting, watching, not listening, but watching for master or mistress to summon. Master or mistress to indicate service. Master or mistress to say, more wine, more grape leaves. And they would be watching on pain of flogging and perhaps demotion to field work. Now, this is not a banquet hall full of electric lights. This is a banquet hall lit by oil lamps at best, torches at worst. And you guys, you've been camping. You know what a fire looks like in the dark. You know how the flickering of the light makes the shadows move. You know that if you were having to watch something intently, it would be very, very difficult to determine whether it moved or not. And so, here we are, waiting for mercy. And at the very start of our life, and indeed on into our life, I think it's the waiting for mercy that weighs on us the most. Our life comes crashing in. Things go wrong. Things aren't the way we wish they were. And we try for a little while to wait for mercy, and then by and large we take things into our own hands. Yes? I can't tell you. We'll just shade off into our life for a little bit. You know, our daughter Gwen has been living with us with a guy that we're very happy is no longer her husband. How many people do you think have told us, well, you got to show tough love, kick him out? How many people are willing to give you advice and intervene in your situations? Huh? How often are you tempted to act just to get some relief? We kind of laugh. We hear the aphorism, do something even if it's wrong. How hard it is to simply wait for mercy. And then how hard it is to recognize mercy when it appears. I promise you, the Egyptian master didn't go, okay, come on down. And typically when God's mercy first shows up, it does not show up as a tsunami of relief. It shows up. You wake up a little bit early one morning and you decide to step out on your porch and breathe the air. And for just a moment, your heart relaxes and you're able to say thank you. It shows up in a side of the hand compliment that you receive at work. It shows up as the first faint flicker. And so, as the eyes of a slave look to the hand of their master, as the eyes of a maid look to the hand of her mistress, so our eyes look to Yahweh, the covenant God, the one who has promised to be to us all that He is, until He shows us mercy. Now, as I was thinking about this image and thinking about this metaphor, it occurred to me that in any well-run household, the house slaves, in fact any slave, but certainly the house slaves, would not be left on their own. There would be other major domos, if you will, who would train them, who would tell them what to look for, who would say, well, when she does this, that means more grape bleeds. And when she does that, that means another amphora. And this is where we come back to Psalm 122, where we say, I rejoiced with those who said to me, let's go to the house of the Lord. Because it's those who are going with us to the house of the Lord that have seen and have accumulated experience on what the first twitch of mercy looks like, and what the first move of the hand of God feels like. Much of the time, when our life is crashing down, when things are collapsing in on us, a certain subsection of us wants to withdraw and hide, keep everything in. Maybe it's because of shame, maybe it's because we don't want to be a burden. Now there's the other subsection that is willing to tell everybody about it in excruciating detail. And then there's a subsection that says, I'm just too embarrassed to be telling you this. Either extreme cuts us off from the wisdom of those who have seen the twitch of the hand, who know what mercy looks like when it first starts to come. And so the psalmist goes on, have mercy on us, O Lord, have mercy on us, for we have endured much contempt. We have endured much ridicule from the proud, much contempt for the arrogant, from the arrogant. And I'm not so much concerned about the proud and arrogant that aren't with us on pilgrimage. I think the concern is for the proud and arrogant who are with us on pilgrimage, you and me. When we cut ourselves off from those who know what the twitch of mercy looks like, what is that but pride? I'm not hurting. I don't need help. The contempt of the proud that you and I experience is our own contempt. The ridicule of the proud that we experience is our own ridicule. I shouldn't be hurting this much. I'm going to take that promise that God won't give me anything that I can't bear up under, and I'm going to misexegete it and make it say something that it doesn't say, and I'm going to just be a tower of strength. It's our own pride. It's our own ridicule. It's our own contempt that leaves us bemused and befuddled by the flickering shadows of our experience, unable to discern the beginning of the mercy of God when it comes to us. We have endured much contempt from the arrogant. It's not so much an issue here with this congregation, but I guarantee you that there are people you can talk to that will say, my first pastor, anytime you had a problem, he'd listen to you for 2.5 interchanges, and then he'd say, Richard, you just need to turn it over to Jesus. Thanks, Bill. That's a real help. It is the proud and the arrogant in us and within us that you and I most endure. And so, what do we do? Our eyes look to the Lord our God until He shows us mercy. And this is the center of the psalm. This is the center of the poem. This is the crux around which everything turns. Simply because we not only need to look to the Lord until He shows us His mercy, I find that we need to ask God for the mercy to look to Him for mercy. It's not our first impulse. Our first impulse is to make the decision, get on with life. Our first impulse is to do anything but just stand there waiting. It gets nerve-wracking standing here waiting, or sitting here waiting for the preacher to continue. So how do we look to the Lord our God then till He shows us His mercy? Well, I think a key among this is not to fool. First, let's not fool ourselves as to whether or not we are proud and arrogant. Let's not fool ourselves as to the extent to which we'd like to have it all together, to the extent to which we would like to be the ones with the answers. Or maybe that's just me. And let's not fool ourselves as to our skill at detecting mercy. Mercy is so easy to miss. But you know, if you tell me about a mercy you had this week, and you tell me about a mercy you had this week, and you tell me about a mercy you had this week, and you tell me about a mercy you had this week, and I listen and I receive that, and remember, in theory, we're all on the road from Beth Shemesh together, and we get to the end of the day and we are just sitting around the campfire, the flickering, shadowy campfire, and we're discussing the events of the day the whole traveling cohort had. In theory, if we each tell each other about the little glimpse of mercy we see, our vision will be improved. Our eyesight will clear just a little bit, and we'll be more attuned to seeing the twitch of mercy in our life. Now, that's all that this psalm talks about. So that's all I'm going to talk about this morning. But if you'll continue to look, Psalm 124, all the way through, you can see in your Bibles, it's titled A Song of Ascents. 124 is by David. Talks about escaping from those who would destroy us. Psalm 125, as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds His people both now and forevermore. That's the psalm that says nothing comes into our life that doesn't come through the fingers of God. Psalm 126, when the Lord brought back the captives to Zion, we were like men who dreamed. All the way through to Psalm 134, where we end up finally at the temple, finally seeing the sacrifice, finally blessing those who are connecting us to the Lord. These Psalms walk us through the pilgrimage we walk through across the decades of our lives as we come to know Jesus. But across all of those decades, all those years, all those months and days, all those day after day after day after days, our first choice, once we've made the choice to move, to continue, to go on pilgrimage, is to decide whether or not we're going to look to the Lord until He shows us His mercy. The easy decision is no. The easy decision is, I'm young and strong, I can do this. The easy decision is, I can make the world be the way I want to. The hard decision, but the right decision, is to say, no, let me wait for mercy. And let me work with the people around me so that I can learn to see it. As a congregation, you have enormous resources for learning to see mercy. I would say they are untapped resources, but you have them here right in your midst. For I look at your faces, and almost all of you, from almost all of you, I have heard a story of mercy. Maybe it's a good time to sit around a campfire and tell those stories.